Hi. Let me ask you a question. Are you one of these people who are staying put in a job that you absolutely loathe right now? Just downright miserable? I've spoken to many of you and I get it. um, I get it. We're calling you job huggers, staying in jobs that don't no longer fulfill you or satisfy you, and you would love to leave, but you're afraid to. Look, in 2021, 2022, people were job hopping like crazy, switching jobs for 20 and 30% raises. Companies couldn't keep people. But today, shoot, people are holding on to their jobs, clinging to their jobs like their lives depended on it. And quite frankly, it kind of does. We live in a crazy time right now. Voluntary quit rates have dropped to their lowest level since 2015. Imagine that. And people who would have left 2 years ago, they're staying put. The great resignation has now become the great stay. So, what's going on here? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Exit to Excel. My name is Latanya. They call me LT, and I am your HR business partner insider, somebody who is actually on your side. I've spent 25 years in HR in corporate America, and I know how things work behind the scenes. I've, managed thousands of layoffs. I have managed work stoppages. I have worked on succession plans. I've dealt with compliance issues, employee relations issues, you name it, I've done it. On the flip side, I've also been laid off from my job 4 times, and I've lived through it to tell about it. So I've decided to create this platform to share all the things I know, all HR, with you, to be your personal resource, your own personal HR business partner. So if this is your first time joining us, then thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the subscribe button. I'd appreciate it very much. And hit the like button and share this with someone who can use it, because we're in some very challenging times right now, maybe even some more challenging times coming ahead. And so I want to make sure that this information gets to the people who can use it the most. Also, follow me on my social media, Exit to Excel, on Instagram and on TikTok, where I am giving information all during the week. I'm engaging and answering questions. So I would love to see you there. And thank you in advance. So let's talk about these job huggers and job hoppers and what's really going on. Um, but the most important question, I think, is, are you doing what is the right move for your career right now? And are you sacrificing growth because you're afraid? And again, I get it. I've stayed in a job before because I was afraid of, potentially losing certain things, or not knowing what the new opportunity may be. As we say, the devil you know is better than you one you don't. And but in HR, I've seen both extremes. I've seen people who job hop too aggressively and damage their careers, and I've seen some people who stay too long and they become stagnant and underpaid. But today I want to cut through all of the fear to help you make the right decision for your situation. So today, what I want to talk about with you is why people are staying put, and if it's the smart thing to do, the real cost of job hugging, staying in a job for too long, when job hopping still makes sense, how to know if you should stay or go, and how to grow without leaving. So let's get to it. So, why is everyone staying put today? I think we all pretty much intuitively know, but just to level set, let's talk about it. Here's what's happening today. The main thing is economic uncertainty, right? People are thinking, hey, what if I leave and I get laid off 3 months at the new place? And unfortunately, this is something I've been seeing. People get into a new job and they're laid off shortly thereafter. As they say, last in, first out. And, Sometimes it may be better to stay where you are established. But the reality is that this fear is only partially justified. New employees are more vulnerable in layoffs, but it's not absolute. So from the HR side, we're not necessarily just cutting the newest people. We are cutting based on performance, business needs, and cost. And trust me, all the due diligence and vetting that has to be done just to get a new headcount approved, more than likely that job is not going to be cut just 3 or 4 months down the road, because on top of that, you also have all the costs that are added in for recruiting that talent and all the time. So I wouldn't be concerned about that too much. And a higher performer, hired 3 months ago might stay while a mediocre 5-year employee gets cut. So I wouldn't necessarily just base that on, last in, first out. Reason number two why people are staying is because of fewer opportunities. So the market reality is that job postings are down 20 to 30% from 2022. Companies are also hiring more slowly. There are less bidding wars for talent. We're even seeing where the salary increases are not nearly what they used to be. And it is a lot harder these days to find an opportunity. So people tend to think, hey, if there's nothing better out there, then I'll stay. But the reality is that there are opportunities, but you do have to work harder to find them. And the place to find them is in the hidden job market. And as they say, it's easier to find a job when you have a job. So it's the perfect time to tap into that hidden market. The visible opportunities, the one on the job boards and such, those have shrunk, but it definitely doesn't mean that, the growth is impossible. Now, the reason number two why people are staying is because the salary leverage is gone. Now, in 2021, 2022, if you remember, people were easily getting 20 to 30% salary increases when they changed companies and changed jobs. And companies were desperate. So they were paying the premiums. And even in my company, they were paying crazy state bonuses because they were trying desperately to hold on to their talent. And so, therefore, counter offers were very common. Today, oh no. Today, you're only going to see maybe about a 5 or 10% salary increase, if that. Companies are less willing to overpay. And these days, you see very few counter offers. So people tend to think, well, why would I just leave just for an 8% salary increase, especially when I would just have to prove myself all over again? Well, the reality is that even though the salary increase is small, if you stay, keep in mind the average salary increase or the average merit budget for a company is around 3.5%. So you're going to stay in a job and get the 3% increase, let's just say every year, and you can get an 8% increase in one pop. So over 5 years, that compounds significantly. So that is the way that I would think about it, right? Reason number four, remote work fear. People are thinking, hey, I'm in a remote job now. I don't want to risk it because I'm hearing about companies that are doing the bait and switch when it comes to remote thing. And is now that right there is real. And I think it's raggedy, but it does happen. And so sometimes it's like, look, I know what I have right now. And so why would I chance it? So I would say that that is a valid concern. Remote jobs are a lot harder to find today than they were 2 years ago. And most jobs are going to be hybrid. But there are some fully remote jobs out there, and some companies are going more to remote while others are pulling back. So you just have to do your homework and see where those opportunities are. Reason number five why people are staying is because of benefits investing. People are thinking, hey, I'm close to vesting in my stock, my 401k. I have good health care here. And I'm at the, mark to get 4 weeks of PTO now. And starting out in a new job, I'm going to get less than that. So the reality is that, hey, the golden handcuffs are real, but you need to calculate if those benefits are worth staying in a job where you're not happy and that is not growing your career. So here's the bottom line: people are staying because they're scared. It's the uncertainty, it's the layoff risk. They're staying because the opportunities seem limited, the salary gains are limited or smaller, and they have something to lose, which may be, the remote work benefits or seniority. But the question still remains: is staying the right thing to do? Right? That depends. So let's now talk about the real cost of job hugging or staying in a job that you don't like anymore or where you're not growing. And I'm going to be very honest here because I've seen too many people stay in jobs far too long. So the first cost is the salary stagnation. The data shows that employees who stay get between a 3 to 5% annual raise on average. And it's going to be lower than that in a, struggling economy or in a struggling company. However, employees who switch can get between a 10 and 20% increase on average. Now, again, these days you may only be getting 8%, but still 8% is better than an annual 3 to 5%. And again, sometimes even less. Even an 8% increase compounded over 10 years is massive. And that's why you always have, tenured employees who are very frustrated when they find out new employees coming in making more money than them. But the fact of the matter is, nobody's going to take a job making less money than they were before, or even at the same money. So it tends to create that gap, right? Okay, so let's look at an example of how this works. Let's say you stay in a job for 5 years. If you're getting a 3% annual increase, you're going to get to $92,000 at the end of the 5 years. Let's say if you switch twice, you go from 80,000 to 88,000, right? You're going to be at 105,000 after 5 years. That's a 13,000 per year difference, which amounts to $65,000 totally in 5 years. So I tell people all the time, look, the fastest way to get your money gains is to switch companies. And I've even seen people who they get gangster with it. They will leave a company and go work in another company for a year or two, and then come back to their company at a higher pay and a higher level. That's gangster, but it's smart. So just know that staying loyal can sometimes mean staying underpaid. I'm just saying. Now, cost number two is skill stagnation. What happens when you stay too long is that you master your current role and then you plateau. You stop learning new things, technology moves on, but you don't. And then you become the expert in your company's way and not in industry best practices. Now, I have seen this in companies that I've worked for where I'm working with people who've been with the company for 15, 20, 25 years. They tend to fall a little bit behind, and the differences are starking. So you want to be conscious of that. If you're still growing and they're still sending you for training and all of that, then that's fine. But unfortunately, it does make a big difference for a person who spends 5 years at one company learning the same thing versus a person who's been in three different companies learning, different environments, different approaches, different systems, and all of that. So the market values breadth of experience and current skills. And so just know that staying too long can absolutely make you less marketable. Look, I changed jobs due to my layoffs. I changed my job. I changed jobs 3 times in a 5 year period because I was laid off. But it was absolutely the best thing that ever could have happened to me because I had all of those experiences working with so many different client groups, dealing with so many different challenges and different systems that I would not have changed it for the world. Now, cost number three is limited growth trajectory. And I see this a lot too. Every company is a pyramid and there are fewer roles as you go up. And what I've seen is that as companies are getting flatter, the opportunities to move up are fewer and fewer. And if you have people that aren't leaving, then you tend to get stuck. So let's say, for example, you're a senior analyst and there are two manager roles above you. Both managers are 40 years old and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. And so you could potentially have to wait at least 10 years before you get a promotion opportunity, or you could become a manager somewhere else within 2 years. So, what makes the most sense? Internal promotion timelines tend to be a lot longer than external opportunities. So, it tends to be a cost to your career. Cost number four is getting too comfortable. Now, this is probably, I say, between this and maybe the salary. Um, no, this is probably the most prevalent one I've seen is where people get too comfortable and they just do not want to start over. The danger is that, hey, you know everyone, so everyone knows you. You can do your job in your sleep. It's easy, predictable, and safe. You stop being challenged. And as you say, as I said before, the devil you know is better than the one you don't. Now, the problem with this is that you're no longer being challenged and you're not growing. And when you're not growing, you're falling behind. So the market doesn't care that you are comfortable, but it does care what you can do. Now, cost number five is reduced negotiating power. The longer you stay in a job at a company, your salary becomes anchored to your current pay. New employers are basing their offers on your current salary. And as you're falling behind, again, that's where you're going to be set. And your market value reset never happens. So, switching companies is often the easiest way to break through your current salary ceiling. So, here's the bottom line: staying can cost you big time. It can cost you money, tens of thousands of dollars in salary over 5 to 10 years. It can cost you skill development and markability. It can cost you career advancement and opportunities, and it can cost you challenge and growth. But that doesn't always mean that you need to leave. It just means that you need to be strategic. So let's talk about when job hopping still makes sense despite a slower job market and when you should still consider moving. So, reason number one to leave is if you are significantly underpaid. I can't tell you how many people I've met with, as an HR business partner, employees who come to us complaining about their salary. And unfortunately, it's hard to do an off salary increase, as we call it, if it's not part of your regular performance review or whatever. Those are sometimes hard to make happen. And it's very hard to make happen in a struggling economy and in a struggling company. But here's just something to know. So you can research market rates on Glassdoor, levels.fyi, and PayScale. And you'll want to take a look at a number of sources to get a good gauge. If you are 15 to 20% below market, then that's reason to be concerned. And also, if you have asked for a raise and you've been denied, then I would say it's probably time to move on. So, look, if you fall into one of those categories where you're below market and you've asked for a raise and you've been denied, then I would just say you need to start looking because the gap is too big to close with your annual raises. It's just not going to happen. Now, another reason to leave is no growth path. And this is where you've been in the same role for 3 years or more. There is no clear path to promotion. People above you aren't leaving, and the company isn't growing. This is when you really should start looking externally for the title and the level that you want. Another reason to leave is that your skills are stagnating. You're not learning anything new. The technology and tools you're using are outdated. The company is not investing in development, and your resume is looking the same as it did 2 years ago. I would say it's time to find a role that is going to push you to learn and grow. Another reason to leave is the company or culture issues. Um, and unfortunately, I've talked to a lot of people that are in a situation where they're just in a very toxic environment. Layoffs are occurring every 6 to 12 months, which makes people very anxious and uneasy. The company is losing market share, and the values are no longer aligned with yours. My advice would be, hey, get out before the layoffs hit you or your burnout destroys you. It's just not worth it. It's absolutely not worth it at all. And then finally, last reason to leave is if obviously you have a better opportunity. And when does it make sense to leave? Is when you have a 15% or better salary increase. It's a better salary, a better title or level. It's a better company or industry. You have a stronger growth trajectory, and there's a better work life balance. Hey, that is a no brainer. Just don't stay because you're comfortable and you are concerned about the unknown. If you are able to get a job with all of those things, then I would say that it absolutely makes sense to go ahead and make the change, but only make the change if it makes sense and if it's strategic and not reactive. Now, still don't know whether you should stay or go. I'm going to give you a couple of questions to ask yourself. One is, am I growing? Stay if you are learning new skills regularly, you're taking on bigger challenges, you're getting promoted or expanding responsibility, you're building valuable experience. Go if you're still doing the same thing after 2 years, you're bored and unchallenged, no learning is happening, and your resume is stagnant. Question number two is, are you paid fairly? Stay if you're paid at or above rate. If you're getting meaningful raises, meaning that, there's 5% or more annually. And if your total comp, your benefits, and your salary is strong. However, you need to consider going if you are 15 to 20% below market, your annual raises are 2 to 3%, or even worse, frozen, or if you've asked for an adjustment or even a review and you've been denied. Question number three, what is the path forward? Is there a path forward? Stay if there's a clear promotion timeline, and be careful about that because I've seen where people have been given promises of promotions down the road and they don't happen. Because remember, promotions are based on budget, and those budgets can be changed and cut at any time. So even if they give you a clear timeline, I would try my best to get it in writing. Okay. So if you're able to get something in writing about a clear timeline within 6 to 18 months, it makes sense. If you have a supportive manager, if you have a manager who is always advocating for you, advocating for your growth, then that is worth gold. I mean, that is invaluable. So I would definitely consider staying for that. And then stay if the company is growing and you see, opportunities being created. Now, on the flip side, go if you don't see a clear path to the next level. If you don't have a supportive manager, or if the manager can't articulate your growth plan, and if the company is stagnant or shrinking, it's probably time to go. Now, question number four, do you like the work and the people? Now, as I like to say, people will stay in jobs they absolutely hate because they love their manager and their coworkers, and they will leave a job that they absolutely love because they do not like their manager. So the manager is so, so key. But consider staying if you enjoy the job most days, if you enjoy your manager and you respect your manager, your team, and the company culture aligns with your values, then stay. So look, there's no job that's going to be perfect. As I like to say, hey, it's going to be chicken one day and feathers the next. But if you have more feathers than you have chicken, then you need to consider leaving. So go if you are dreading work on a regular basis, the culture or manager is toxic, and if the values are no longer aligned. it's time to consider leaving. And then question number 5, what is the opportunity going to cost? Stay if, your current role is building valuable marketable skills, the company brand strengthens your resume, and if you're in a growth trajectory. But consider leaving if staying means you're missing out on better opportunities, that your current role really isn't doing anything for your marketability, and if you're just coasting and not growing, you're just kind of, going along with the flow. That's not good. So, if you have mostly state answers, I would consider, staying there and maximizing growth in your current role, and then revisit in 6 to 12 months to see if it still makes sense to stay there. Now, if you answered mostly go, then you might want to start strategically job searching using hidden market strategies, and don't quit until you have an offer in hand. And then if you have mixed answers, some stay and some go, then I would probably establish more specific metrics and a timeline. So, for example, if I don't get X by so and so date, then I'll start looking. But have some kind of idea and plan in terms of what you're doing and know why you're staying or why you would be looking to leave. Now, if you decide to stay, you want to maximize the opportunity as much as possible. So, strategy number 1 and to maximize growth is to negotiate internally. You can ask for a title change, a salary adjustment, an expanded role in new projects. Use market data to support your case and make it easy for your manager to say yes. Focus on skill building. There are a lot of companies that offer really, really good training. They will, sponsor your licenses and your certifications. Take advantage of it. Learn all the news and technologies they're offering. Volunteer on stretch projects because those are things you can put on your resume that's going to make you more marketable. Don't count out lateral moves. Switch teams within the company. Take on, a different functional area, transfer to a different department or office, but focus on getting that broader experience. Strategy number 4, build your external brand. You'll want to stay active on LinkedIn, right? Stay active, post articles, comment, network in your industry, speak at, events or write articles, and keep your skills and network current. And then finally, set a timeline for yourself. Time passes us so quickly. And before you know it, you're at a company in the same job for 7 years and you don't even know where the time went. So give yourself a realistic timeline. If you don't get promoted within, a certain number of months, then you're going to leave. Or, give it another 12 months to see if the culture improves, but don't stay indefinitely without any clear goals, and keep them front of mind. So look, the bottom line here is staying is fine as long as you're being strategic about your growth and you're getting something out of the deal. But if you're staying just solely out of fear, then you're committing career suicide. I just hate to say that, but you're absolutely doing yourself a huge disservice. So, look, after being in HR for 25 years, I know that there is no one easy answer. There's no one size fits all. The whether you job hop or you job hug really depends on your particular situation, where you are in your life, and what your goals and values are. And only you can answer that. Now, if you are interested in the checklist I just went through, the assessment on whether you should stay or go, then comment job hop below, and I will be more than happy to send you a free guide where you can go through the check marks and see whether you have more stays or goes, and go through a logical process to determine what is best for you at this juncture. And I'd love to hear where you end up. So, look, there you have it for today. Just want to keep that front of mind for you. Your competition is paralyzed by fear, but staying in jobs that do not serve them. And again, I talk to so many people who just aren't happy, but are staying because they've gotten too comfortable. But I want you to make the right decision, a strategic decision based on your growth, your pay, and your trajectory. But the choice is yours. But let me know how I can help you. And until next time, stay safe exit to excel, and always bring your A game to the job search. See you later.